right, we are back. And, in the gun world, sometimes bigger's better, sometimes smaller's better. There's always battles about this. But, Ruger has had some fun building what we're about to talk about. And when they did it, I was kind of shocked. But, Jake, tell a little bit of the story. Okay?
Well, it all started in the early 2000s. At the time, basically the biggest production revolver at the time was the 454 Casull. Freedom Arms offered it, and they were really the only ones that offered it at that time in a full-scale unit. You had the 475 line bars, 400 Corbons, and the 50 AE, but not everybody's just going to run out and buy themselves a Desert Eagle and 50 AE.
Right.
So, at the time, though, 40 caliber handguns were very popular. Just that was what was the craze right then. But all in the midst of this, Hornady was slowly developing this new cartridge based on the 475 caliber.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that it was a kind of a middle point, which was not really looked at that much. And while doing that, Ruger was working on modifying the Super Red Hawk revolver to make this new Hornady caliber work. The development eventually became a 475 caliber round with a case length of 1.285 inches, and they originally called it the 475 Ruger. But they realized it's comparing the 475 Ruger to the 475 line ball. Why not give the Ruger a different numerical name? So they decided, okay, the 480 Ruger was what we'll call it. So on December 1st, 2001, they announced the 480 Ruger as an official cartridge and the Super Red Hawk Alaskan to be the
gun of choice
for it. Now, it was never intended to really replace the 475 line ball.
Right.
Because they knew you really can't. But it was intended to be a round that would still work for any game needed.
In a bullet design that there's a growing market for, because that 475 was starting to roll a little bit. You got a lot of cast bullets in that. Well, you can do cast bullets in the 480 too. And as you build into that market, and whenever, and this is a trick we found out, is once the manufacturers of the ammunition come on board, then you got a hit.
Right.
So the 480 Ruger was born, and the ball started rolling for Ruger with their giant, and I'll be honest with you, people have always used Ruger frames because they're nice, strong frames to build their Wildcat guns from. When you go through the reloading manuals, if you're using a Super Blackhawk or a Super Red Hawk, you're going to be able to load hotter loads in them than you would if you were using a Smith & Wesson Model 29.
Right.
Because the cylinder walls are bigger, the strength, the pressures allowed in that gun are larger, and very seldom do you see a blown apart Super Blackhawk or Super Red Hawk, but you do see blown apart Smith & Wessons because the cylinder walls are smaller. They are narrower and they're not as strong. But there's a reason for it. So, I mean, the Smith & Wessons are built more for holstering, and these guns are built more for serious work. So,
the 480 ends up being almost a ballistical tie.
Very close
to the line ball.
Yep.
Very close enough that
a little bit less pressure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a special to the 475 line ball, but it is just a little bit less pressure. But noticeably, you would probably feel it in your hands if you were shooting them by the amount of kick. But still a monster cartridge.
I had read an article in preparation for this weekend, and I was kind of humored by it. The author of the article called the 480 Ruger the 416 Rigby of the handgun world, and he said because everybody knows how powerful it is. It's a gun that it's in between. It's in between. It's a gun that's never really picked a lot of, but yet it'll still do everything.
Yeah, I would certainly handgun hunt with it. I would put it in a lever action gun and hunt with it. Yep. I would put it in a single shot rifle and hunt with it. For deer here in southern Michigan, it'd be great. And, anything like under 100 yards, I'd feel pretty confident with a shot with that gun.
It was, when this was introduced, they brought out the Super Red Hawk revolver, but this one was different. It had it was the Hunter, what we consider now the Hunter model.
Right.
The barrel had an integral scope mount down the whole top of it.
Very sharp looking gun, too.
Yes, very.
And it has that extra weight to help you manage that recoil, too.
Well, this was before they offered these in that stainless. They had it in that matte gray finish. Remember that?
Yeah, good
With
looking
those
guns.
really nice. They weren't exactly Hogue grips, but they had their own sort of cushioning to the grips. Just a nice revolver.
Yeah, good looking gun. And if you've ever handled a Red Hawk or a Super Red Hawk, the actions are smooth as silk.
Yep.
It's surprisingly smooth, different from a Smith & Wesson in many ways. It has a different feel to it. It has a different. So if you're just getting into handgunning, you wouldn't know that to compare. But it is a surprisingly smooth action in a Ruger. Quite a gun.
So, as popular and as great as this sounds, it didn't last.
Right.
It just didn't continue on. At the time, there was probably, it being people were getting into ARs.
Yeah.
90s were the years of handguns. In the 2000s, people started getting into the AR-style rifles. It died off. And it did. Ruger quit making any handguns in it. Basically, the round was mothballed at Hornady, and only making the boxes, just the ammo. But recently, Ruger has introduced, again, the Super Red Hawk in the 480 Ruger.
Good.
Now, they offer 2 models for it, which is great. The Super Red Hawk is back, but this time it has a 7.5-inch barrel, and it's the satin stainless. No more of that gray finish. It's kind of their flat stainless steel. Has the Hogue monogrip and adjustable sights, so it's intended to be a hunting gun. And MSRP is $1,079. Now they offer the Alaskan in it now as well. This is a 480 Ruger with a 2.5-inch barrel. So, if you ever lose your way at night, you can fire this as a flashlight. Or if the boat's out of control, I'm sure you can use it as an anchor. So, either way.
What a gun. The Alaskan models are designed for backpacking in Alaska, and you need something to stop a bear. Voila. Out comes the Alaskan.
It weighs 44 ounces.
Good Lord, that's a heavy gun.
A drink that size is outlawed in New York. And you've got it on your hip in Alaska right now.
So this is a 6-shot 480 Ruger.
Yes.
And it is a hefty gun, to say the least.
To say the least.
It's very, very powerful. So they are, if you ever get a chance to shoot one, take advantage. These are the guns that a lot of people wear the past recoil shield gloves with.
Yes.
Because they are somewhat punishing. Now, since Ruger developed the 480 Ruger and put it out there with Hornady, Smith & Wesson has come out with the 460 and the 500, which they basically dwarf what this gun can do.
Right.
And they're about the same price, but they are almost scary, the amount of recoil that comes out of those guns. They are pretty tremendous guns. Now, you got to they're love them and leave them. Some people love them, some people walk right away from it. It's like, no thanks. There's been some horror stories out there of holding the gun incorrectly and pulling the trigger and severing the ends of your fingers off with the flash that comes out of the end of the cylinder. There's been certainly some dented foreheads from the recoil, because the recoil of a limp-wristed shooter can let the barrel come back and smack you in the head. So these are guns you have to be careful with.
Plus, you're firing. This is not a 22 revolver. This is more than a 4. If you've ever shot a 44 Magnum, thought, wow, that's got some pretty hot rounds. Yeah. Well, this is doubled.
Now think of this: if you wanted to go out and climb a mountain, you wouldn't start with the biggest mountain, would you? Wouldn't go, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. That's kind of where it's at.
I'm going to go climb Mount Holly.
You might want to go to Mount Holly and walk up it a few times and see if you want to go climb a mountain. So something to consider there when you're trying to pick what kind of handguns. So really, what I want to say is this: as a gun enthusiast my whole life, I have had interest in numerous guns, and sometimes I have interest in them, and then I shoot them and realize it wasn't as much fun as I thought, or what, I've shot it now, or I've maybe harvested a deer with it, and I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to sell it. Or some people buy them and say, I never sell anything I buy, and they collect dust in the safe. Hate to see guns do that, and the reason being is I hate to see guns collect dust. Guns are to use. So get out and shoot. And if you are going to get a 480 Ruger, you might want to get into handgun loading, for loading those handgun cartridges. You can certainly load those down and make them very nice, mild loads. It would still totally outperform 44 specials and 44 magnums, but not be quite as hard on your hands and ears as the full-blown 480 Ruger. So there's all kinds of opportunities here to customize what you do to make your shooting sport enjoyable for you. And that's my 2 cents worth as a custom loader myself. Reloading has been a passion of mine for most of my whole life, and I think Jacob's kind of the same way. He relies on me for most of that. Hey, Dad, I need some loads for my 44. And next thing you know, voila, they magically appear. But and I think he appreciates it. And even Kevin right here pushing the buttons has been in our reloading room and helped us reload some bullets. So lots of fun that he shoots through his 357 Magnum. So you too can get into the same sport and hopefully enjoy it. If you have any comments, you want to call us here in the air, again, 810-743-8255 or toll free 866-533-1530. I'm John. We're going to go to a quick commercial break.
Hey, hey.